New books, new books, new books, and new books. It's time for a book haul. So I've just returned from Madrid and I came across a vintage bookshop and it was so good. I've discovered so many unique writers both in Spanish and in English, and I brought with me back home so many books. The vlog from my trip to Madrid is already available on my channel, so you can just see how I was book shopping there. I think we have a lot to catch up on. This is everything I bought in January and February, so here is my book haul. Most of these books are vintage books, and I'll also share how much I paid for each of these books. But there are also new books that I wanted to read in 2026 because, January is such a good month to cite a TBR, so I bought lots of Pulitzer Prize winning novels. So let's get into it. The House of Special Purpose by John Boyne. You might have heard about his most famous book, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. This one is less famous, but I've heard great things about his writing. And this one is a historical fiction novel about someone who gets close to the Russian Tsar family, the Romanov. So this person becomes the participant and witness of the whole tragedy happening during the Russian Revolution and everything that happens to the Romanov family. I think the setting of this book might be really interesting, and I've heard great things about John Boyne's writing, so I'm excited to read this one. This one is a book in Spanish. It's really trending right now here in Spain. The writer is Marta Jimenez Serrano. Almost every book content creator I do follow here in Spain said they love this book so much. That's like the best book of the year. So I was traveling to Madrid and I bought this as a new book. Oh, this one is cool. And I bought this one as a new book in a bookshop. I'm excited to read this one because I feel like I live in Spain, but I do not read a lot of Spanish writers. For those of you who know Spanish, this is an interesting book everyone is talking about here in Spain. And if not, I hope it will get translated into English because whenever something becomes a bestseller, it does. So we'll see. The Night Watch by Jen and Phillips. This is my 2026 TBR because this is a Pulitzer Prize winning novel. It is set during the Second World War, and I'm really curious about it because I know nothing about the writer. And actually, before I went to check the list of Pulitzer Prize winning novels, I haven't seen this book a lot. So I'm curious, and I will let you know soon. Talking at Night. I think this might be a contemporary romance because this was on my romance book TBR, and I've heard great things about this book. The reviews are amazing. And also here is a comment from Jojo Moyes, and she says, a beautiful love story. I devour it. So Jojo Moyes loved this book, and I loved everything Jojo Moyes has ever written. So I'm hoping for the beautiful love story and feel-good vibes, and we'll see. All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. It's a historical fiction novel about a blind girl and German officer, and it is set during the Second World War, I think. This book is on my February TBR. I've already shared that I'm reading it, and so many people wrote me that this is like their all-time favorite novel. So I cannot wait to read it. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is another book on my romance TBR. Last year, I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. I liked it, but not loved it. But I've seen many people say that with her romances, it's like you need to find your book because you might like some of her books and just hate the others. So I want to read something else by Emily Henry, and I hope I will enjoy Book Lovers. American Pastoral by Philip Roth. Another Pulitzer Prize winning novel. It's a new book, but I wanted to have it. Last year I read The Humbling by Philip Roth. Though the topic in Humbling was not my story, I really enjoyed his writing. So I was curious about this one because this one is considered his best novel, his most famous novel. It won the Pulitzer Prize, so I'm reading it. This book is set in post-war America, and it is about a successful businessman whose daughter becomes involved with the radical political movement. I'm really curious about this story because it seems like not a common storyline. Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey. The whole 2025, I wanted to read something by Charlotte McConaughey. The main character, she moves back to Scotland to reintroduce wolves into the wilderness. And it seems like such an interesting story, blending nature and fiction. And I've had great reviews about Charlotte McConaughey and this book in particular, so I'm reading it as soon as possible. This book, I know nothing about the writer. It is a popular Spanish writer, Andrea Longarella. She writes contemporary romances. I think her books are not translated into English yet. They're just bestsellers here in Spain. And it seems like such a feel-good story because the main character, she returns to her small town, and apparently she left because her heart was broken. So this should be a contemporary romance, and it might be such a feel-good read. You have small town, you have lighthouse, you have second chance romance. I love all of those elements, so I hope I will enjoy this one. David Baldacci. Finally, I've wanted to read David Baldacci for quite a while. I already have his book The Innocent as audiobook. I was planning to read it this 2026, and then I saw this book in a bookshop, in a vintage bookshop, and it was €3. By the way, I'm not sharing the prices of the new books because most of them are between 10 and €15. So it's not really interesting. I feel like it's the vintage books where I really won the lottery with those prices. Finding books for 2, 3, €4 in such a good condition. So yeah, back to David Baldacci. Cannot wait to read it. His stories are usually packed with action, mystery, drama. And I think this one is a book number 3 in this series. But as I said, I already have the book number 1 as audiobook. So we'll see. I cannot wait to read it. Another vintage book. By Kate Morton. She writes a beautiful historical fiction, and I've seen lots of her books, and I've always wanted to read something and still haven't had. So this one was €3 in a vintage bookshop in Madrid, and I just bought it. So this year I'm reading Kate Morton for the first time as well. Lisa C. This one is actually funny. This book is called Dreams of Joy, and Lisa C was on my TBR because I wanted to read historical fiction novels set in ancient China or in China in general. I think her book Snowflower and the Secret Fan is the most famous one, so I thought I would read that one. But then I was in a vintage bookshop and I saw this one and I got it. And it was, I think it was €6. Not bad enough, it's hardcover. But then I get back home and I realized this is a book number 2 in the Shanghai Girls series. So now I need to read Shanghai Girls first. But anyway, I wanted to have something by Lisa C in my library, and now I do. A Dangerous Fortune by Ken Follett. I'm so embarrassed I still haven't read anything by Ken Follett. His most famous book is The Pillars of Earth. I think it's called this way. So I thought I would be reading that one. But then I saw this one in a vintage bookshop and it was €3. So apparently this book is set in Victorian England and it's about greed for power. It has betrayal, it has family drama. So hopefully it's going to be interesting, but I wanted to read Ken Follett anyway. So instead of Pillars of Earth, I will read this one. I bought this book because I like the cover. And I also saw it won some awards here in Spain. The author is Juan Manuel de Prada, and this book is not translated into English. I think he has another book called Tempest in English, but this one is not translated into English yet. But still, it looks interesting. I know nothing about. We'll go in blind and we'll let you know. The Unheard by Nikki French. I'm embarrassed to say this is the first time I hear about this author because I went on Amazon and I saw the reviews and there were like so many reviews on the books, and apparently this is a thriller about a girl who disappeared. So let's see. I'm really curious because the reviews are amazing. As someone who reads across different genres, I do not read a lot of thrillers. So this 2026, I want to read more, and I hope I will like this new author. And yeah, that's also a vintage book, and it was €2. More new books. Imagine Me Gone by Adam Haslett. Again, Pulitzer Prize, I think, finalist. I think this book was number 2 or number 3. It was not the winner. I have no idea what this is about. I will just go in blind and we'll see. Richer Powers, the Overstory. This one is also a Pulitzer Prize winner, a new book. And I love the books that combine nature and fiction. And it seems like a huge book. And I love nature, I love hiking, I love trees. So I have really high hopes for this book. I think it might be like one of my favorites of 2026. Fingers crossed. The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. This is a new book, also on the Pulitzer Prize finalist list. So I've heard it's about 2 siblings and the drama and their lives. So I'm curious because this book has high reviews and I hope I will like it as well. I've wanted to read this one for years. If you like books, This book needs no introduction. It was a bestseller. It's everywhere. Every bookshop you visit, you're gonna see this book. So I'm finally reading it. My last Japanese literature book was Days at the Morisaki Bookshop. And I cannot even say how I felt about that book because Japanese literature feels so different every time I read it. So I'm excited to finally read this book. I hope it's going to be a feel good story, but with Japanese, you never know. The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. Oh my god, I wanted to read this book for a while. I've seen amazing reviews. Apparently, this is a historical fiction novel with mystery, and it also explores the legend of Dracula. And it was also a vintage find. It was €4. So I hope to dive into this story next month. The last book I recently bought, also a vintage find, it was €5, and it's Alone in Berlin by Hans Fallada. I read this book maybe 4 years ago, but I read it as ebook, and I want to have it in my collection because this is classics. If you haven't read Hans Fallada, I highly recommend reading it. The story is set in the Nazi-occupied Germany, and it's about a couple who start making postcards to warn people against the Nazis. So it's a lot of drama, but I don't know. This book felt so different from everything I've ever read, and I really liked it. The writing, everything. I'm glad I've discovered Hans Fallada, and I want to read more books by him, but this one, I might read it again potentially in a few years once the story fades. So this was my book haul for January and February. Obviously, way more books than I can read in the next few months. But most of them, I wanted to have them anyway because I got Pulitzer Prize winning books. And then the vintage finds, I mean, I needed them. So thanks for watching and see you next week.